great revolution in Japanese farming. 10% to 50% increase in production from the first year in the non-fertilizer department. I wanted to shout, Japan has been saved. The reason is that the great gospel of rice harvesting, which is currently the most serious problem in Japan, was born. As is well known, not only has Japan been narrowed to 3/4 after the end of the war, but the trend of population growth is still more than 1 million a year due to the birth system. So optimism cannot be tolerated at all. If so, there is no other problem so painful today. This is because the nation budgets a large amount of money every year, and despite the fact that agricultural land improvement is solid, and even though both the public and private sectors have become big children, it is a normal year rather than an expected result. Even the maintenance of the work is like a pie. There is a series of disasters such as typhoons, cold damage, insect damage, etc. Like last year, and it became a terrible crop like Ano. So when considering the future of Japan's agriculture, it is completely cold. Unlike the oldest days, there is a way to import rice and wheat from foreign countries today. But this is a very temporary surplus, and of course it cannot be continued for so long. This is because, as in recent years, trade has been in turmoil, and today, when the crisis in the business world is being called for, we are at a point where we must take urgent measures. Therefore, it seems that the government is devising countermeasures to shift to fairly drastic deflationary policy, but this is not unreasonable. So things are not easy. However, the key to solving this problem is to increase rice production. Frankly speaking, it is necessary to secure an absolute amount that can support the entire population. But at the moment, it is impossible to realize such a dreamlike hope. But don't be surprised. An epoch-making farming method, an epoch-making farming method that should overcome this crisis was born. And this is natural farming. According to this, if it is possible to harvest more than the required amount, it would be unbelievable because of the Tanabata formula. But the fact is a fact until we get tired of it. It is producing amazing achievements all over the country. In the screams of production cuts everywhere like last year. Only one natural farmer did not cut production. and all the joy of increasing production was shining, so that neighboring farmers who had been wandering until now are irresistible in hurry. There are series of co-members from all over the world. Therefore, I think there is no doubt that most of Japan will be switched to this farming method within a few years, which is my expectation. About this, we have published a special issue every spring based on the results of the previous year from 3 years ago. But as the number of participants gradually increases, the number of reports increases, and the conventional 8 pages cannot be helped. So this time the type improvement. At the same time, 4 pages were added to 12 pages. Moreover, fortunately or unfortunately, in response to the nationwide terrible crops such as last year, if this farming method increased the production all at once, it would be a good opportunity given by God, and at this time it would play an active part in the large-scale membership acquisition movement. As a result, we are ready to reprint 1 million copies, and the members are struggling with that policy. Principle of natural farming. In order to thoroughly understand this principle, it is impossible for the brains of established science to understand it. So I will explain it with the spiritual science that I learned from God's revelation. Therefore, it may be quite difficult at first, but it should be understood as you read it carefully. If not, it's because you are trapped in scientific superstitions, and you should be aware of this. And above all, the facts show that it is the absolute truth that I preach. Therefore, according to this, it is certain that production will increase by 10% to 50% from the first year. On the other hand, the current farming method, as we know it, combines traditional and scientific methods, and I think it has made great progress. But the results are more than betrayed. As you can see from the big drop in sales last year, the rice did not have the power to overcome the various disasters that were the direct cause of it. That is, it was the weakness of the rice. Then the reason for this is that if you say that this is due to the toxin called fertilizer, the stand of mouth will not be narrowed. After all, farmers to date believed that fertilizer was essential for agriculture, and this idea was not able to detect the harmful effects of fertilizer because of the farmers' low knowledge and scientific blind spots. The important thing about this is that science must be fine for other things, but at least as far as agriculture is concerned, it is far more wrong than helpless. For example, since the essence of soil and the performance of fertilizer are still unknown, artificial methods are allowed and the power of nature is ignored. Behold, despite the fact that the government, farmers, and scholars have been working together for many years, no progress or improvement has been seen. Science was naturally defeated without a rush. If so, there is nothing I can do in the future. At all, Japanese agriculture hits a wall and can't do anything about it. But rejoice, God taught me how to break through this wall. I affirm that this is natural farming, and there is no other way to save Japan. Let's explain in detail what this farming method is like below. In the first place, the root of this problem is lack of awareness of soil. This is because the farming methods to date have neglected the essential soil and emphasized the supplementary fertilizer. Think about it. Any plant that leaves the soil has any meaning. A good example of this is that it is still fresh in our memory that the U.S. garrison cultivated water after the end of the war and attracted attention, but this also seems to have achieved considerable results at first, but I heard recently. According to the story, it gradually degenerated and finally stopped. In the same way, farmers to date have looked down on the soil and even though of it as food for crops with fertilizer, which was a surprising mistake. As a result, the soil became acidic and the original vitality of the soil declined, which is well documented by the bad harvest last year. Farmers who are unaware of it have long wasted a lot of fertilizer and labor, creating the cause of bad crops, so it should not be foolish. From now on, I will try to put a scalpel of spiritual science towards the essence of the soil. But what I need to know before that is the original meaning of the soil. In the first place, when the owner was first made humans, the soil was made to produce enough food to feed humans. So if you sow seeds on it, it will sprout stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. It will gradually grow and the autumn of fertility will come. By the way, the soil that produces this rice is a really wonderful engineer, and it should be given a great deal of preferential treatment. But it is not true. Of course, since this is a natural force, this research must be scientific subject. However, science made a misguided mistake. That is an error that relies too much on human power rather than natural power. Then, what is this natural force? This is the X, that is, the natural force generated by the fusion of sun, moon, and soil. That is fire, hydrogen, and the earth. Then, as one knows, the center of this earth is a mass of fire, which is the source of geothermal heat. This geothermal spirit penetrates the crust and fills the space to the stratosphere. And this spirit also has two sides, the spirit and the body. And the body is nitrogen in science. And the spirit is undiscovered. At the same time, the spirit radiated from the sun is fire, which also has a spirit and body. The body is light and heat, and the spirit is undiscovered. Also, the spirit radiated from the moon is hydrogen. The body is all water, and the spirit is undiscovered. X is a result of the undiscovered spirits of these three being united. As a result, all things are generatively nurtured, and this X is nothing but the root of the vitality of all things. Therefore, even the growth of agricultural products depends on this power, and this power is an infinite fertilizer. Therefore, if we acknowledge this, love the soil, and respect the soil, its performance will be surprisingly enhanced. So this is a true farming method, and there can be no other farming method. Therefore, by implementing this method, the problem is fundamentally solved. There is another important thing here. That is, human beings today thought that their thoughts, such as reason and emotion, were limited to animals. However, surprisingly, it would be stunning to hear that this is also found in inorganic substances. Of course, the soil and crops are the same. So by respecting the soil and loving the soil, the performance of the soil itself can be fully demonstrated. Above all, it is necessary to keep the soil clean, and it goes without saying that this makes the soil joyful and lively. However, the difference between animals is that animals are free and dynamic, whereas soil and plants are non-free and static. Therefore, if we wish for high harvest with the same gratitude for rice, you will surely be able to understand your heart, because I don't know this reason. There was a big flaw in science in that everything that I couldn't see and couldn't grasp was dismissed as nothing. Technical aspects of this farming method and others, although the principle of this farming method may have been roughly understood, I will write down the main points that you should know in carrying out this, but as mentioned in many reports, omitted in another section, seedlings are the first without exception. It's thin and yellow, and it's really poor, so it's pessimistic, and it's easy to get lost because it's ridiculed, 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 and even advised by neighbors and family members. But it has a foundation of faith. As mentioned above, if you clench your teeth and endure, you will gradually recover after that time, and you will be relieved. Moreover, there is no exception to the fact that the harvest will bring about a slight increase in revenue, and the fact that it will be revived with surprise and joy. If we explain this, it is like this. The initial poverty is, of course, due to fertilization, just like drug addicts and drinkers. It's like a temporary loss of energy and sickness right after it's abolished. After passing it, it gradually became normal, and then it turned out to be good for a year. And after a few years, the seedlings were lush from the beginning. This is proof that the fertilizer has run out. So this is what happened, and there is no doubt that it is more than 10 bales. You can see how terrifying the poisoning is by looking at this. And the most important thing is the series. If it is rice, it is rice. And the more one type is continued, the more the soil will have the ability to adapt to it, and it will gradually become more vigorous. Even if you look at this, the performance of the soil, it is truly mysterious. And this is X. Therefore, if the soil is cleaned and as much as possible, and the continuous cropping principle is adapted, the harvest will increase year by year, and more than 20 bales are not a dream. But what? On the contrary, he concentrates only on polluting the soil and makes a large sacrifice. So there is no word to say. What I learned from last year's bad harvest was that the rice fields with a lot of fertilizer were so bad that I woke up a little. But it seems that this is still a long way off. Next, on the technical side, as you know, the surface of the current paddy field is like a wall of fertilizer poison due to many years of fertilizer. So it is necessary to break through this and turn it upside down. It should not be too deep or too shallow. It depends on the land. But first, about one shaku is good. At the time, it is even better to use soil dressing. This is because the pure land increases and the fertilizer is neutralized. Also, the space between the stalks is about one shaku, and it seems that a few plants are good. However, the technical aspect depends on the climate and condition of the land, so it is necessary to distribute it appropriately. Next, it is better to abolish the use of straw. Above all, foreign substances other than soil should never enter. So, why did you use straw? There is a reason for this. At the time of the occupation by Japan, it was said that there was a provision in the rules of the occupation army that agricultural products should be fertilized, and using that, the name of fertilizer-free cultivation at the time was used as a seed to extort money. There was a guy who tried to do it, and it seems that there was a plan to crush the main religion and acquire believers behind it, which is dangerous. So I changed it to natural farming and used straw as fertilizer. I made it. The next few things to note are that there are still words such as jorei and shugo in the report, but last year's special issue also said that it should not be religious. Since it has been released, I would like you to be careful in the future. The reason is that if sales can't be increased without receiving credit, it will affect the spread. Also, from the fact, even without faith, it is certain that production will increase by 50% or 100% without fertilizer. And the point is that Japan today must be saved as soon as possible. Another thing I would like to say is that this farming method is not limited. Is not limited. to increasing the production of rice alone. There is such a wonderful plus. That is the amount of electricity currently used for ammonium sulfate production is less than half that of Japan as a whole, and if it were to be abolished, the current electricity would be sufficient. And I heard from an expert during this time that there was still a surplus. Was surprised. If this is the case, when all the farmers implement this farming method, rice imports will be eliminated, fertilizer will not be required, the farmers' labor will be halved, and if there is surplus electricity, the profit on the whole national economy will be calculated at all. There is no doubt that Japan will suddenly become the world's most peaceful and wealthy nation, even if it is stamped with a taiko, because it will not be possible. Finally, there is one more amazing thing. Needless to say, the harm of fertilization is not limited to single crops, and so is the human body. In recent years, the number of parasites has increased dramatically, and I hear that there are more parasites, especially in rural areas. This may be due to the fact that urban people eat more bread and farmers eat more rice, but there are good examples of this. The report and photos are listed below, but many would be shocked to see them. Therefore, from this aspect as well, the harmful effects of fertilized cultivation can be clearly understood.